Hello, this is the second tray I'm hoping to sell. I'm sorry about the break in the video. The clamp on the tripod was pressing both the side buttons and it tried to trigger an emergency call. So that's one lesson I've learnt. Right, in this tray it's a mixture, a few small paperbacks, A format, and a lot of other size paperback. Firstly, I'm going to show you this. It's the Hook series by Tully Thetford. Spines are creased, worn and faded, but otherwise, generally, most of the books are reasonable. I've never read these, so I can't say much about them. Right, carrying on. Again, very common book, 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. I believe it is a reprint. I thought the world building in this book was really good. I read this 3 or 4 months ago, and then I picked up a really horrible copy because of the film coming off, but otherwise perfectly okay for reading. I was not as impressed with book 2. Carrying on, I've got 2 David Tolerman books. Both are signed. That's his signature. I believe there are 3 in the series. I've only got 2 in terms of duplicates. So that's 2 signed books. What I'm going to include here, I'll do the other A format. This was the first printing I showed you in an earlier video. I stuck the pages back, so it's not too bad, and I did my best to straighten the spine and cut out the spine lean. So this is what it now looks like. So you have the possibility of getting a very rare first printing of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. As you can see, it's first printing. It's only in, I would say, poor condition because a child has obviously got hold of it at some point, and it has a cracked spine, so doesn't affect it as in terms of readability, but it is not in the greatest condition. But it is a very rare book. And the other one, which is, to be honest, probably ought to go in the bin, but if someone wants to read it, it's the Quatermass Experiment. Again, very brown, grubby, and cracked spine, but it is all there. So again, not really worth much, but it's a classic book. Sorry, and one more A format, which is one of the Badger books. Not very good condition, and I don't think it's one of the rarer ones, so that's included as well. Carrying on, it's the first printing. I don't know what these go for in the shops now, somewhere between £2 and £10. I upgraded my copy, so this is fairly good condition. So that's that. In here I've also got 2 Jack Campbell books. Lost Stars, Shattered Spear. That is very nice condition. And Lost Stars, Imperial Sword. This one does have spine creases, but otherwise is, nice condition. first printing of Burn by Patrick Ness. It's not signed and it's a fairly common book, so not that expensive normally. Liarden Universe Constellation by Sharon Lee and Steve Miller. Now this was totally my fault. I bought this forgetting that I had a copy. So this one has a slight crease. I'm not certain when that occurred, but otherwise it is probably as new. Next three in this box are Starblaze, Donning Starblaze editions. This one is Fire Upon the Wine-Dark Sea by Somtao Sushiritkul. These books do have some illustrations internally, I think. Typical, I can't find one. So you can see they do have some illustrations internally. I don't know how many of these there are. This is The Shrouded Planet by Robert Randall, which is amalgamation of Robert Silverberg and Randall Garrett. Again, very nice condition. Some of the Donnings are numbered, so this one was SB13. SB, I presume, stands for Starblaze. And I would love to know if anyone has a full list of all the Starblaze numbers. And this one, The Moon's Fire-Eating Daughter by John Myers. This is a sequel to Silverlock, which people may be more familiar with. Again, the Donning books were well known for having not many, but some internal pictures and artwork. So these are far from common. I don't know anyone else who collects them, and I say I would love to know if someone knows the full list, because some of these books are unnumbered and some have been printed with no number. So if anyone works with that company or knows anyone who did, who might have a final list, I'd very much like to know. Then a couple of hardbacks, or 2 or 3 hardbacks. This is The Night Circus, which is, I think, her first book, Erin Morgenstern, and is probably the most sought after one. This is not in the greatest condition, but it's quite reasonable. It is a first printing. I was certainly thinking of reading this, so I might read this at some stage if this lot of books isn't bought straight away. If you remember, I showed you a signed copy of Fires of Heaven. Well, I bought, probably paid over the odds, for another copy, and basically I've swapped the Tatty Just jacket before, which is this one, for a slightly better one on my signed copy, and I don't need another copy of the hardback. So that is that book. And lastly, in terms of the hardbacks, Viper's Daughter by Michelle Paver. Now this has a signed book plate. So that is it in terms of the hardbacks. This is pretty much a reading copy with creases. I picked this up on the basis that I would read it, but I haven't got around to that yet. Next, I've got the Andromeda's trilogy by William C. Dietz. They are all pretty much as new, but I have read them. It's military SF. I think it's well done. That one's got a slight crease, but I don't think there's anything special about them. So I'd rate them as good, but I can't rate them more highly. They are typical military SF. And finally, The Book of Phoenix by Nnedi Okorafor. This is a first printing. It's in lovely condition. I did read this book several years ago. It is different. Again, I wouldn't particularly rate it highly. Finally, from this box, William C. Dietz. So again, like the Andromeda books. Lovely condition. I haven't read this one, but pretty much as new. Another signed book, The Waterborne Blade by Susan Murray. And there we are. You can see the signature. I believe it's a first printing. Another signed book. There is a crease according to this top corner of the front cover, but it's signed by both John and Carol E. Barrowman. So that's that. And the final book in this box is a Simon Morden book, Theories of Flight. It has a little bit of creasing down the bottom and a little bit of creasing on the spine. It's book 2 of Metrazone. I haven't read it, so I'm not able to say any more about that. And that covers all the books in this box. And this is the final tray I would like to clear. I'll start with this row, where I have 6 Perry Rhodan books. I recently upgraded these. Originally I never collected Perry Rhodan, but I did collect these because they were doubles. I haven't included them in my short videos about doubles, but I have a number of these. They are not the greatest condition, but all perfectly readable and reasonable. That one has some quite bad creases and marks on the back cover. This one has some creasing and some label tear loss. I think this might be a duplicate. And Perry Rhodan number 100, which is one of the most common ones that you find everywhere. So that's the first few. Also, Files of Calderon by Jim Butcher. Generally very nice condition. And this one, Joe Haldeman, Forever Peace. A little bit of a crease on the spine, but otherwise very nice condition. Next is a J.G. Ballard. Not necessarily the greatest condition. Strong spine crease, a little bit of cover creasing. So that's why it's in this box. Next, Julian May, Sky Trillium. Generally very nice condition. I don't know whether it's a first. Probably, yeah, it's a first. Next is Bob Shaw, The Shadow of Heaven. it has a problem on the front cover, but otherwise is in very nice condition. Fairly short. This one is a first printing. John Marco, The Devil's Armour. There are some spine creases, but otherwise generally a very nice copy. Next, John Meany Context. Again, a little bit of light spine creasing and a little bit of creasing on the cover, but a reasonable copy. Next is Red World by Charles L. Harness. Quite a lot of creasing on the spine, and it's quite brown from memory, but otherwise a reasonable copy. Next are three books in, or the first three books in the Thraxus series. This was quite in demand when it, or soon after it first came out. This one's got a bag crease on the back cover. I read this 3 or 4 months ago and I enjoyed it, so I carried on and read the next two, and I think that, I can't remember which was the second now, but Thraxus and the Warrior Monks and Thraxus at the Races. I really enjoyed these books. How can I describe them? They're about a magician, well, not a magician, a sorcerer who's only got about 2 spells. So he's not very good. He's lost his job, so he lives above a bar. He's got one of the others in the bar is someone who wears a chainmail bikini. She's mixed race, and it covers quite a lot of almost controversial topics. In it there are drug dealers, prostitutes, corrupt politicians, corrupt church officials, and he, having lost his job, has taken up a role as a private detective or investigator, and all sorts of events happen and affect him. But while all this is happening, he's reading clues. So it's a bit like a detective where they throw lots of clues out and you don't recognise them. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. So the next two are on the same vein, so you won't learn anything new, but I'd recommend them. I don't know whether it's my British sense of humour, but I quite enjoyed them. It's almost as though everything is overdone. It's almost like watching a pantomime where the acting is exaggerated. The plot is exaggerated, the weather's exaggerated, everything is over the top. But enough about that. Next, a whole load of Anne McCaffrey books. Varying condition, but generally very nice. Changelings, a couple of spine creases, otherwise very nice. I don't know whether these first or reprints. Dragon Drums. No obvious faults. The Tower and the Hive. Again, no obvious flaws. Black Horses for the King. Again, no obvious flaws. Pegasus in Space. A couple of slight marks there, but and a couple of marks on the back, but generally very nice condition. Anne McCaffrey and Elizabeth Ann Scarborough, Power Play. Some, no, yeah, maybe one slight spine crease, very little, but generally very nice condition. Anne McCaffrey, Red Star Rising. A little bit of edge wear down the bottom, but generally quite nice condition. And the last one in this row is a first printing, Shattering the Lay by Joshua Palmatier, a first door printing. I haven't read anything by him, so I'm able to comment on that book. Right, carrying on. Start with this one, Warlord's Domain by Peter Morwood. Pretty much as new, lovely condition. River Run by S.P. Somtow, who is also writes the Somtow Sushirikul. Again, lovely condition. I've got 3 of the Venture SFs. Interstellar Empire by John Brunner. Again, very nice condition. Star Wolf by Edmund Hamilton. This one has a bit of spine roll and spine creasing, but otherwise generally very nice. And finally, the Timeliner trilogy by Richard C. Meredith. Again, a flat spine, so generally lovely condition. Carrying on, I have 6 Robotech books. Number 12, and this is only in good condition with cover creasing, spine creasing. Not even certain I'd call it good. Force of Arms, again, not the greatest condition. Label on the back, a few marks, better than the previous one, but I don't know. Rubicon, again a bit of damage to the spine, 1 or 2 marks, but generally quite nice condition. All of these perfectly readable. The Invid Invasion, quite nice condition. The Final Nightmare, and finally Metal File, oh, pardon me, by Jack McKinney. And this one looks to be in very nice condition, but it is a reprint. So several Robotech books. I've never read them, so I can't comment. Next is Exile's Challenge. Again, I would say lovely condition. And does look to be a first. And next, another by Angus Wells, Forbidden Magic, The God Wars Volume 1. Again, lovely condition. And probably a first. Yep, looks to be a first. Next, 3 Dave Duncan books. Future Indefinite. Slight marks to the spine and slight marks to the cover, but generally still very good. Empire and Clown, Part 4 of A Man of His Word. Generally nice condition. Has an ISBN label stuck over the top. I haven't tried to remove that. As has this one, which is Part 3. Again, very nice condition. And another lot of David Weber's. So again, I don't know whether these are first or reprints. This is The Shadow of Saganami. Perhaps light spine creasing, very light. Otherwise, generally very nice condition. Yeah, third printing. As I say, many of the David Webbers may be reprints. In Death Ground, Steve White with Steve White. Again, an ISBN label stuck over the top. Generally looks to be in nice condition. Heirs of Empire. Again, fairly nice condition. The War God's Own. A slight spine crease, no, yeah, maybe a slight spine crease. Generally very nice condition. Next, David Webber and John Ringo. We Few. This has some spine creases, fairly light, and generally nice condition. And finally, David Webber on Basilisk Station. This is an Earthlight, so a British edition. Slight ding at the top there. Again, fairly nice condition. And yes, a first printing. So, you've now seen the 3 trays. Hello. So you've now seen the 3 trays that I would most like to clear. They are all perfectly okay as reading copies. Some, you might argue, are almost collectible. How much are they worth? Well, I mean, basically, it's almost impossible to find cheap science fiction in London now. Some of the charity shops are now charging £3 a paperback. So some of these would be going out at £3. But there are still shops that do them at £1 and £2. I dare say some of these, if they were being sold by Morris at Zardos, would probably be considered £1 books. Maybe some would be a bit dearer. Maybe some wouldn't find space on his shelves. But generally, I would think an average of £2 is probably about right. They're about 110. So, give or take 5, I don't know exactly. So maybe you could think the true value is about 220. I don't want that much. I also don't want the hassle of having to box and wrap and post. I have sold on eBay before, but I don't really want to do that with relatively low value books. It's too much hard work. So basically, I really would like to clear these 3 trays by collection and cash on collection. So how much would I want? As I say, probably a shop would try and sell these at 220. And I know if I took them to the only bookshop I know that is currently, or was, a couple of years ago buying, I would get a pittance, and I don't want to lug them all across London to try and get them sold. So, how much do I want? I mean, I'd be absolutely delighted if I got half price, which would be perhaps £110. But I still think that's too much. So if someone wants a large number of sci-fi books at a very reasonable price, I would be happy to sell them for £60 if someone wishes to come and collect. The trays they are in can go with them as well, so you won't have to bring bags and worry about all of that. I realise this may not be everyone's cup of tea, and given the small number of subscribers to my channel, I'm not certain this will make it to anyone who is interested. But if you know anyone who might be, or anyone who thinks they might be able to sell at a profit, by all means, get them to have a look. So 3 trays, about 110 books, £60, so that's just over 50p each. Some of them are definitely worth more, but to me, space and clearing some of these books is more important than what I get financially. I'm not going to reduce from that. If some of these I still haven't read, so I might be prepared to use as reading copies. And then at the end of the day, maybe I'll give some to a charity shop. I haven't decided. But if you would like them, I'd be happy to part with the 3 trays for £60. Thank you. That is all.